Good morning. Good morning. My name is Maria Ramirez. I am here to teach you about Day of the Dead. It is a tradition in Mexico that is celebrated on the 1st of November and the 2nd of November. This celebration is one that is not a sad one. It is a colorful and festive one done to remember the loved ones that have passed away. Some people do keep a quiet, solemn attitude as they remember their loved ones because it is sad to miss someone that we have loved. So I'm going to tell you how the tradition is done in Mexico, and as you may know, it is also done in the United States, especially in places where there's a large number of people, Latino people in that area, like in California or Texas. Here in Colorado, some of us do that too. So first of all, I want to give thanks and recognize Days of the Dead book. It is a book by Catherine Lansky, and the photographs are by Christopher G. Knights. So if you're a teacher or if you want to have a collection of these books, please use books such as this to teach about the Day of the Dead. The other book I use that I want to give credit to is El Día de los Muertos por Linda Lowry, Ilustraciones por Barbara Knudson. So I want to recognize them because I use their illustrations and their photographs along with the pictures that I took when I went to Day of the Dead in Morelia a few years back. Okay, so this is one of the altars that were in Morelia when I went. It was one that was out as a competition and for people to admire and see, for the visitors and the tourists that went and for the community. Now, this time is not a sad time, but a celebration full of color and music. For some, it is a quiet and respectful occasion because they do miss their loved ones. This celebration is done on November 1st for the children that have passed away, and on the 2nd for the adults. This altar here was another one that was set up to compete on the contest for the best altar in Morelia the year that I went. This is, with this, I'm going to tell you that people here share the fact that death is not feared because they know that death is part of life. Just like anything, things die and then they are reborn. For example, maybe if you think of night, the day kind of dies with the night, and then the night wakes up and gives life to a new day. Kind of like a plant. A plant dies, leaves its seed, and then the seed grows to a new plant. So death is just part of life, is the attitude. During Dia de los Muertos, the cempasúchil or the marigold is a very common flower. People grow these throughout the summer to have them ready for this occasion in the fall. You will see flowers everywhere. When I was walking in these portales, in these marketplaces in Morelia, the streets were lined with flowers. There were marigolds, calla lilies, lion's paws, all kinds of flowers, beautiful flowers, and many other things that are used for the Day of the Dead. For example, this lady, she probably grew her flowers in her ranch or her farm and brought them to sell at the marketplace. One of the things that is customary to do when people take their flowers either home to their altar or for the cemetery is that they will take petals and spread them out and form a trail from the door of the house to the altar to lead the spirit, the loved one, to follow, to come to the altar, which is his ofrenda or his or her offering. This is also done in the cemeteries. Petals are spread along on the ground. Getting ready for Day of the Dead takes a long time because people have to plant, like I told you, and then they make these beautiful, elaborate wreaths that are taken to the cemetery. When I was a little girl, these wreaths were what my mom would buy to take to the cemetery in Mexico when we would cross the border from my hometown to see my grandmother's grave on this day. There were lots of vendors, and I remember we used to eat sugar cane and all kinds of fun treats, sugar skulls, and it was just fun to be a kid during this time, and I didn't see it as a sad thing either. One of the very common things that you'll see when you go to the marketplace are all the different things that people will buy. For example, the candied skull made of alfeñique, a special recipe. The candy skull is the candy for the occasion, just like a candy cane is the candy for Christmas, or a chocolate bunny is the candy for Easter. So you will see this type of candy made in all shapes and forms with skulls and skeletons. Skeletons doing silly things, being silly because, again, death is not feared, but it is part of life. And so they just make different kinds of entertaining types of skulls to kind of laugh at death because people claim they are not afraid of it. Here is this special elaborate skull where people can decorate it very nicely. One of the things that is done is to demonstrate that someone is not afraid of death is put their name on the forehead of the skull. Here this lady is setting her altar at home before she takes it to the cemetery. So she brings her flowers, sets up her bread, her food, and then she will be here enjoying all the things that they put on the altar with the family until the first when they will take the things to the cemetery. Here's a different altar that is unique. Your altar, my altar, they're all different, unique, based on how you decorate it, what you put on it. But there are some basic things that are traditional and that most altars use. For example, as you know, the orange flower, the cempasúchil. There are also the 4 elements that represent the earth, which would be the fruits and vegetable or the salt. The wind is represented by the cut paper or the white tablecloth. Fire is represented by candles, which illuminate the soul and lead the spirit to the altar, along with marigolds. And then water is represented by liquids, such as the water that is placed there to quench the thirst of the soul that has traveled from far away to get here. Wine, water, or liquor, or the favorite soft drink is also placed, depending on what the loved one loved. Papel picado. Papel picado is that paper I told you about. It looks like this. It is carved out with and has figures and shapes of skeletons, and it'll say Day of the Dead, Dia de Muertos, and this is sold all over. So this is part of what's set at the altars in the home. I want to invite you to look at my video on papel picado that shows you how a friend of mine from Mexico up in the mountains makes this by hand. It is just fascinating to see how she does this, punching out these shapes one at a time. So watch that on my YouTube channel too. Here's another altar that has lots more of the papel, or this beautiful paper, along with pictures which are one of the most important things on the altar. You will set pictures, just like I have, if you decide to do one, of all the loved ones you have missed. So that way you remember them. And when you gather around, you can tell stories about them to remember how they lived their life, what their favorite things were, jokes they made, songs they liked, and all of the things that will bring them alive into your mind and into your heart. Okay, so this is another kind of altar. Here's pictures. Like I told you, pictures are very colorful and beautiful. They are what is the most special. In my altar, I have pictures of my loved ones that I miss. And you can do the same with your picture. You can set it on on a counter, on a space. And that, whatever you have, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but as long as you have it there to remember and share the stories of that person that you care about. And you can remember them and bring them back to life in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. Just like this grandma here is telling stories of people that have passed to the children and the grandchildren. So this is a great tradition to remember and learn about people that we know were our uncles or aunts or grandparents that we didn't get to meet. This can be done at home or it can be done at the cemetery. Here's a different altar with the Catrina, a very popular skeleton that a lot of people like to dress as. There's a lot of Catrinas during the Day of the Dead in Mexico, and they're all over in statues, and people dress like that and wear the hats and the dresses, and they paint their face just like a skull, like a skeleton. As you can see, this altar is also very pretty, very unique, with the same type of offerings or gifts. The flowers that you could see, the fruits, the vegetables that represent the earth. You could see the skulls, and there's some candles, and the pictures, of course. One of the very traditional foods to put on the table or the altar is the bread of the dead, and it's pan de muerto. It's a bread that is round, and they make little bones like the skeleton bones. There are recipes to make this, or you can just buy it. It's a delicious bread that goes really good with another traditional drink that's set at the table, which would be maybe a chocolate. We had the Mexican chocolate, the chocolate de la abuelita, and it is so good with any kind of bread. You could have pan de muerto, you could have just pan dulce, the Mexican sweet bread, or you could have it with your tamales if you set tamales on your altar, because that's what your loved one liked. Like here, maybe you want to have it with some mole or rice or bread or semita bread. And here's one that has the tamales, as you could see. So you could have all of these things that you make as a celebration dinner and have a conversation about the people that you're honoring at the altar. If you look at the corner of this slide, you can see a little truck over there. So if there's a baby or a boy or girl that passed away, you could put their toys there or their doll. Or if somebody played the guitar like my grandpa, I would set the guitar next to the altar, or maybe a little miniature one on the altar. So there's lots of different ways to set up your altar. It's just a very special thing to do. Once the first of the month comes, the 1st of November, people start going to the cemetery and they carry all of their offerings. They transport what they had at home and take it to the cemetery. There they will clean, they will take out the weeds, clean, and decorate the tomb before they will set the food on the tomb itself. The tomb will be used as a table, as you can see here, and the flowers all around, and then people sit around it and they'll eat like they're having a picnic. There'll be music. Some people will even bring mariachis to serenade their loved ones, or they'll bring their own instruments and strum the guitar and sing, or bring a CD and play the loved one's favorite music. During the Day of the Dead, it is the time that the monarch butterfly migrates back all the way from Canada. It flies thousands of miles to get back to Mexico for the winter. And as these butterflies are flying, they're flying over the people when they're celebrating the Day of the Dead. So people believe that these butterflies are the spirits of their loved ones coming to them. So it is a beautiful time to go to Morelia during the Day of the Dead and to watch these butterflies. And if you can make it to their sanctuary, it is an amazing place. If you cannot go, I encourage you to YouTube or Google the flight of the butterflies or the monarch, and it is a beautiful sight to see. The trees are covered. They are transformed from green to orange because there are so many butterflies that it just is packed with butterflies. And as they move their wings, it looks like the trees are breathing. And a truly amazing thing to see. When I went to Morelia, I went to several cemeteries. I went to the one in Janitzio on the island in Pátzcuaro. And this is one of the indigenous people that lived in the island. And she had her grave here. Not very elaborate because they are not very rich. And so they make a sacrifice to buy the things they need, like to buy these candles, which are handmade, that you can see them handmade as they take the wax and run it down the string to form these long candles, because these candles are lit all through the night. They buy their food and things they will put on their watsiari, the wooden frame that's in front of the grave, the flowers, all of that costs money. So they make a sacrifice to make this a special day. Then I went to this cemetery, kind of like middle income people, and maybe they had a little more money and they were able to make their gravestones made out of concrete, and they put on their crosses and things. And you can see there are some of these crowns or wreaths that I talked to you about earlier. So on top of these graves, once they are clean, people set their picnic area. Then the last one I went to was one that where people had a little more money, or they had more money, and they had a different kind of cemetery where they could afford to buy, maybe a more expensive tombstone. But the traditions are the same. They have their cempasúchil, their marigolds. They come to visit. They stay the night or they stay a while. They have an altar at their home, and they also share stories about their loved ones. So this is how different people celebrate based on what they have. But the same is that they share the love of the people they miss, their loved ones. One of the most fun things I saw when I was in Morelia, in the island of Janitzio in Pátzcuaro, were these little guys. These kids would go just like you go trick-or-treating. They got their pumpkins that they grow in Mexico. They carved them out, made them into their jack-o'-lanterns, and they went around in the day and into the night asking for not treats. They didn't say trick-or-treat. They would say calavera, calavera. And what they wanted were coins, veintes and pesos and cincos, so they could accumulate or save some money. So when they had enough, they could go to the store and buy their special treats. And it was so fun to watch them enjoy this day. So this is where I was in Morelia. It was so much fun. An incredible, incredible trip that I took and shared with my friend that lives in Morelia that wants me to go back, Cristina. And so I got to see her. And at the end of the day, when I left that last cemetery, I told my grandmother, Abuelita, please take me back home safely. I came so far, all the way by myself, all the way from Colorado. I flew to Mexico City, and from Mexico City, I took a bus all the way to Morelia. So I asked that she please take me back home safely. I told her, I have come to learn about your traditions and your ways, to teach my students and to teach my family. And so when I took a picture of the sunset, you can't see it very well here, but the sunset, when I took the picture, it formed a cross. And I saw that as a sign that my grandma was proud of me and that she was going to make sure that I got home safely. And then I would take these traditions and bring them back to Colorado, and I would practice them in my home and teach them to my children. So this right here is my all year round altar that I have in my house. It is my family tree and angel altar. Here in the tree, I have all of my family, my daughters and their children. And on the bottom, I have, as my family grew when they were young and when they were babies, when my daughters were pregnant, and when somebody passed away, I brought them here to share as an angel. And so this I have all year round. And what I learned about Mexico, about Day of the Dead and the traditional altar, I made this one in my house. This is my actual one for this year. I have my abuelitos, my abuelita, and my abuelo, Jose and Salome, my mom and dad, my husband, my granddaughters, and my great granddaughters, and my brother. And my sister in law, Tere, also. They're all here so that we can remember them and share their stories. So that if for example, my granddaughters did not meet my grandparents, I will share stories about them when I was a little girl so they can get to know her and they will remember her, and I will hold her alive in my heart and mind because I don't let her memory be forgotten. And this is how we bring the Day of the Dead alive in our minds and our hearts. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this and learned from this video, this PowerPoint. I encourage you to set one up. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. It can just be a picture on the shelf that you have or on your windowsill. But if you can pick a flower or maybe a candle or something like this, or maybe encourage your mom to help you, you can set up and then you guys can share stories about your loved ones. Thank you so much again for listening. Enjoy your day. And I will say goodbye and have a wonderful season of the Day of the Dead. Thank you.